Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller, and this is a podcast for your personal evolution. In this episode, how to have your own cause instead of merely romanticizing the causes of others. So we're a world that devours stories. Most people tune in every night to be taken in by the stories others are living or have created. And the vast majority of these stories are centered around a grand cause. I mean, the action adventure movies and dramas that we love so often showcase someone encountering a cause and devoting themselves to it, to a cause, something bigger than themselves that involves protecting or supporting the welfare of others, of something. Finding and having a cause is often the most profound aspect of a life well lived, but we don't seem to grasp how finding a cause works. We tend to think of learning and training and preparing so that we can commit to something truly big and worthy, a grand purpose, again, a cause. So my guest today argues in the most compassionate way possible, I think, that we have it backwards and that the greatest people that we've ever known, they simply committed to something they believed in, and the journey within that cause is what made them great. It crafted and it honed them. The challenges and trials and triumphs along the way is what refined them. Then the charge is not to commit to preparation, but to commit now and let the commitment prepare you along the way. Lynne Twist is a recognized global visionary and legendary humanitarian. Lynne wowed the world with her first book, The Soul of Money. But I had her on this show for her book that's called Living a Committed Life, Finding Freedom and Fulfillment in a Purpose Larger Than Yourself. Lynne's own story began when she heard about the Hunger Project, where their goal was to end world hunger. And she knew she was supposed to devote her life to it. She spent a decade there and has influenced more people through more humanitarian efforts than nearly anyone I've ever met. Lynne has been an advisor to the Desmond Tutu Foundation. The United Nations honored her with a Woman of Distinction Award. And from working with Mother Teresa in Calcutta to the refugee camps in Ethiopia and the threatened rainforests of the Amazon, Lynne's on-the-ground work has brought her a deep understanding of the social tapestry of the world and the historical landscape of the times we're living in. Over the past 45 years, Lynne has worked with over 100,000 people in 50 countries in the areas of fundraising with integrity, conscious philanthropy, strategic visioning, and having a healthy relationship with money. So you can find this book from Lynne, that's my muse for today, Living a Committed Life, anywhere. And you can connect with her at soulofmoney.org. And on social media, you can find her at Soul of Money as well. So coming up next, my discussion with Lynne Twist and talking about the benefits of living a committed life. Let's evolve ourselves.
Well, Lynne, again, I'm so grateful you're here. As I said a minute ago, when I first saw the book and saw what you've done and what you were about, I thought, this is somebody I want to have a conversation with. So we're going to have a conversation and just let tens of thousands of people listen to it as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
You, in the idea of, you had me at hello, right away, your initial statement with this book, Living a Committed Life, or I should say your perspective of, and this is your quote, the conventional wisdom is that you become someone who can fulfill the commitment before you make it. And I suggest it's actually the other way around. My assertion is that really the way we find our greatness is through making great and life-altering commitments. And it just kind of set me back. And I thought about some of my own experiences with myself and with walking with other people and how often we are waiting for X, Y, Z to happen, wait to have the experience, the acumen, the education, the whatever to go do X to feel that we're worthy. And you're saying, and of course you depict it so beautifully in the book, that no, most of the great people that we know made the commitment and it is what formed them. And that just puts it's counterintuitive, as you know, to our culture. Well, and I guess that's why you put the book out now.
Exactly. Exactly. Good point.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you should write a book on that. But it really kind of flips it on our head. It's a little disconcerting. I mean, do you find that message, it's a little disconcerting to how we look at the trajectory that we think we should follow, and you're kind of flipping it on you're doing a 180.
Yeah. Well, it actually, when people look at their lives, though, they usually see, wow, that is kind of how it works. So at high school, I decided to be a volleyball player, and my coach said we could be the best in the state. And so then we became the best in the state. We didn't start best in the state. We became best in the state. Or, I look at people's, if you look back at your life, someone motivated you or inspired you or challenged you, or you challenged yourself to do something beyond what you thought you could. And then that commitment created you being that person, even if it's learning to play the piano or, riding a bike, you kind of, it's the vision that pulls you towards greatness. And so it's actually counterintuitive, but it's the way life actually really works. And then also, of course, we think that Gandhi was simply extraordinary when he was born, given that extraordinary life and what he delivered and how everybody still quotes him, decades later after he's dead and gone, and they will for another 150, 200, 300 years. But he started out as a little brown man, got thrown off a train in South Africa. And it was the commitment that he made that forged him into that wise, incredibly quotable guy. Same thing with Martin Luther King. I mean, all the great people we think of, we kind of think, well, they started out that way, they were so lucky. But actually, it's the other way around. And I really think that it's important to realize that, because when we're listless and worried about the world and it's just a mess, and we complain and gossip and lament and finger point and we have the opportunity to turn our complaints into a commitment way larger than what we're complaining about. And that pulls you out of that nasty negative conversation and gets you right into action. So it's really important for our time. That's really what I'm sort of answering the question, or the statement you made in the beginning. It's the timing of this message, I think, is a fit and a match for the world we're in now, because it's an all hands on deck world.
Yeah.
It's not something you can observe and complain about now.
I want to get into that, how this affects, because you write about it, how it affects the individual, and then of course how it affects our world. But starting here, even the perspective that we have, I'm thinking about my kids. Like you, I've got kids, I've got adult kids, and the expected trajectories that we take when we go to school, and then we're going to go to college, and then we're going to get a job, or we're going to start a business, and we're going to do X, Y, Z, as we look to doing and hoping that we do something that's meaningful and fulfilling. And you're kind of flipping it upside down, or even to a degree, even throwing it out and going, no, the commitment is what's going to show you where to go, create you to be the person that can go there. Okay, but that's daunting. So to start there, though, to go, gosh, what am I going to commit to? I wanted to start there because even that I have found, as I've journeyed with people, I've sometimes been judgmental of what people commit to. And I've come out of that a little bit and said, you know what? I just want to align with, or I do align with, people who just commit to anything. Just the aspect of committing and having a purpose. Those are the people that I gel with and I appreciate. I don't need to judge what they're doing. Is it altruistic to the level I think it should be or whatnot? There's value for the person just in committing. But now over here, and as I look at the stories, it feels like the majority, when you're looking at purpose, when you're looking at commitment, that people do find the most purpose when they are doing something that really does serve humanity. So I wanted you to kind of help hold that tension, or not that tension, but that question of, okay, I'm looking for something to commit to. What's worthy? I mean, because people are asking, okay, I'm going to commit to something. Do I have to gauge the worthiness of that commitment?
Well, let's see. What an interesting way to approach this, or interesting question you're asking. Worthiness. Let me think. I actually think that what calls to us to the deepest part of who we really are, not what manipulates our identity or our ego, which is, you got to decipher between that and being really called. Uh, we're not called to do something that's going to harm anybody. I don't think a calling is anything other than a divine intervention or divine. It's got divinity in it, and whether one believes in God or the universe or natural world or there's something larger than our identity and our personality and our ego that calls us to serve and serve deeply. And that's what I'm talking about. Um, I'm aware that goals and strategies to meet goals are very important and very effective. And there's plenty of books about that. And they're all good. And I highly recommend them. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something that is, you can't check it off like, oh, I did it. It's larger than your own life. It's something that you can't accomplish really by yourself. It's not something that you can say, been there, done that. What's the next thing? No, it's a calling that's deeper than all of that. That gives you the projects and the goals and all the things you want to accomplish to do. But it's bigger than all of that. So it's purpose. It's the deepest part of who you are. It's actually almost like a why you were born, why you're here now. It's a really epic time. There's no question about that. And
Well,
I think if you're here now, you're here for a reason, and you're here to make a difference of some kind. And part of life is finding that and making that difference. So, and that's so fulfilling and so exciting. So that's what I want for people. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. And I want to ask it, in your stories, well, you have your own story that you start the book out with, and then you tell the stories of course, these incredible people that we pretty much all know of historically or in present time even. And we have so much focus, and it comes up in this show plenty as we're talking about goals and talking about work and talking about personal fulfillment of doing something that you're passionate about. So we all know that word, do something you're passionate about. It was a couple years ago, in the span of a month, that I had two different people on the show. John O'Leary was one of them. He's a guy who got burnt over. Most of his body, should have died, has an incredible story. It was him and I believe it was Sam Collier, who I had on the show. And they both talked about, what is that thing that your heart breaks for?
Mm-hmm,
and I thought, and that almost resonated with me more, because there's a lot of things I'm passionate about. Some of them I just want to be a consumer of. I'm not looking to change the world by my passion for food or music or whatnot. It's just for me. I'm a consumer. But then there are some things that, man, I want to do something about, and those I really relate more to. Burden. I used to say burden. I feel burdened by it, and I wake up and I'll never be satisfied. I'll never be satiated. This is something that's going to go on forever, just like your work has. And do you find that is where it hits people more? It's going out, which I would say to a younger crowd, I mean, you got to go out and experience some of life. Go, get out of high school, like my kids, go get out of high school and go travel, go see some things and find what passions arise, but also what bothers you for this culture, what bothers you and breaks your heart. Do you find that falls in line more with what you're talking about?
Yes, I think that's right on. And we often use this phrase, turn your complaints into commitments.
Yeah.
But it's also, what I'm talking about is even deeper than that, and you are too. So what breaks your heart? What you can hardly stand it when you learn that this is happening. So that's one way. And then another way is, and that's a way of looking at life where gosh, there's this wonderful phrase from Michael Beckwith and Rev D, Reverend Deborah Johnson: pain pushes until vision pulls. Have you ever heard that?
No, but I'm writing it down.
Yeah, I hope I put it in the book. I think I did. Pain pushes until vision pulls. And that's what breaks your heart. You can hardly stand it. But then when you have a vision that you could actually do something about it, that pulls you out of the pain into action. And we do a lot of things like now our political situation in the United States is so painful. Oh my God, it's so painful to listen to people and to have people pot-shotting each other and mudslinging and all the horrible stuff that's happening. It's like gossip on steroids or something. And for me, it's totally painful. But what is my vision for our country? What is my vision for our planet? What is my vision for the world? That will keep me in action on a track, on a trajectory that has me not get engaged in all the back and forth, but moving things forward. And when you're moving things forward, the back and forth, you don't get caught in it so much. You're not so interested in it. You don't have time to make somebody wrong and to point fingers at somebody. You don't have time. You're making something happen. So what I'm looking for, what I'm trying to elicit or ignite or actually inspire is having people step up and step into life at a whole nother level and step into the challenges we face as a human community, not like problems to fix, but challenges to meet with who we are. And that's exciting. If you think about a problem to fix, it's like, oh God, there's something's broken, something's wrong. I got to get in there and get into the muck. Or even helping. There's a wonderful phrase from Rachel Naomi Remen, a wonderful mentor of mine. I love her so much. She says, helping, fixing, and serving represent three different ways of seeing life. When you help, you see life as weak. When you fix, you see life as broken. When you serve, you see life as whole. Fixing and helping may be the work of the ego, but service is the work of the soul. And that's what I'm talking about. Service is the work of the soul. It's something that rocks your soul. And that's yours, meant to do. It's yours. It doesn't mean that other people can't participate. My God, you're going to need them. But it pulls you forward. So, and I think everybody can find that. I don't think it's just, the lucky ones find that. No, that's there for everybody or they wouldn't be here.
Well, and I was wondering just about that because you could, you could have somebody thinking, oh gosh, I got to have this holy grail experience where the light shines down from the mountain and I hear the music going on and I know that that's the thing. And that may or may not happen for everyone. And yet every day we go on social media and media at large and we hear so much negativity and so much complaining, as you said. And I could see your perspective. To go on just a basic scroll of Facebook and to see the complaints and say, with grace even, to say, God, I hear your pain there. Go make a commitment out of that. Because I find so many of the things that I am committed to, that I am burdened by, that my heart breaks, they didn't come from some mountaintop experience with a light shining down. A lot of it may have come from just what I am burdened about with what my kids are experiencing in the culture, the hard things that I see. And I go, oh, my heart breaks for the amount of what screens are taking kids away from going after deeper callings. Well, if I care about that, I know, which I do, what can I do about that? How can I serve that? Okay, so that's there. I'm still a little enamored with your perspective on commitment though, Lynne.
Okay.
And you had me thinking as I'm reading about, again, just that paradigm shift of how we tend to want to prepare to be ready for this big thing. And yet I thought again of parenting. I keep bringing up parenting in that, but with parenting, I am not aware, I didn't do this. I'll own that. I did not do this. And I'm not aware really of anybody that I know who spent 6 months, 3 months, a year, who spent a 4-year college, degree type span learning to be a parent. I'm going to go learn and prepare to be a parent. I'm going to volunteer at the nursery at church. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do all this stuff so that I am ready to have a child. One of the biggest commitments that you can have here on planet Earth as a human. We don't. We kind of just get together and maybe it's even an accident, or maybe we're married and we're thinking about doing that and we have a kid and it's born. And I'll never forget day one that happened to me 27 years ago, and I'm in the hospital, and the next day they just usher us out and we put this human in a car seat. I go, seriously? You're just going to, I'm just leaving. I have no idea what to do. And I have a human that I am now responsible for. And what do? You become a parent. And now we did do that. we did. I wanted to be a good parent. And so we did start studying and we did start reading and we were, and feet to the fire. And I thought, yeah. And here you are saying, man, find that thing that you want to do and go and let it create you into the person that can actually do that. And why do we look at everything else, look at our careers and these big things that we want to do, and we don't just jump into it? And of course, most of us find ourselves then in our 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, and we've just kind of been doing life, and we're sitting there now having our midlife crisis because it's just kind of boring and it doesn't add up to much. It doesn't make our heart sing, and we're not committed to something worthwhile. And yet it's almost like you're back here going, you can jump into it anytime. It will create you into that. That's, again, it's such a paradigm shift. And it is, again, I keep feeling like it's super simple, but it is daunting.
Yeah, right. It is daunting. And the daunting part of it is part of the beauty of it, actually. I mean, it's kind of like, life is, as we all know, a mountain with no top. Life is school.
Yeah.
When you talk about parenting, we grow up with our children. We grow up through being a parent. When I remember once reading in Conversations from God, that one of those wonderful series of books, and Neil Donald Walsh, I had a chance to hang out with him a little bit once we were in a conference together speaking, and he has 11 kids, I think 11, or maybe it's 10, but like he has a zillion kids. And there's a part of one of the books, maybe the second or the third, where he says to God, "Oh my God, it's so hard raising children. God, what do I do?" And God booms back in the voice that he says he heard, "You shouldn't be raising your children. You're too much about yourself and your career and what you're really making your mark. Your parents should be raising your children. That's what grandparents are for." And I thought, oh, what a great idea.
Wow. Okay.
Because, I'm not recommending this exactly, but I thought it was so cool because I remember when my kids, talking about parenting, my kids, if their face was dirty or they didn't get a good grade or they failed at something, it was all about me. Because I wasn't mature enough to realize, they'll be fine. I was so attached to them that if they didn't dress properly and if they didn't have nice manners, there was something wrong with me.
Yeah. When
in fact, when you're a grandparent, which I am now, and you're probably not yet, but when you are, you'll realize your grandchildren are perfect. If their face is dirty, isn't that adorable? If they fail the test, they're there. It's okay. You'll do better on the next one. If they didn't win the volleyball tournament, God, you gave it your all. So you have this perspective when you're a grandparent, because you're not about yourself anymore. You've kind of let go of that whole thing. But we have our children when we're in the blush of our establishing who we are. And we get a little bit distracted sometimes. As much as we want to be a great parent, we also have to earn money. We also have to make our mark. We also have to make our marriage work. We also have to be, show up for our friends. So I thought that was the coolest answer. And really what I realized was it's grandparent kind of energy, whether the grandparents are alive or not when your children are born and raised. The energy of a grandparent is one of the beauties of even if you aren't a grandparent, of parenting well, which is letting kids be who they are. And that's what grandparents have the space to do. So it's almost like the advice he got from God in his book that he told me about was advice for parents to find that grandparent energy in themselves and let their kids be exactly who they are. I don't know. But isn't that cool?
Oh, I love the analogy, Lynn, and it's an interesting one for me. I actually have 9 kids, so I'm
you do?
one of those people who have a zillion kids.
You do?
And,
my God.
And what's interesting is my wife and I had 3 kids, thought we were done, and then ended up having a little span of time, and then had 5 more.
Oh my God.
Biological kids. And then we adopted 2 on both ends. So my oldest kid is adopted. She's 28. My youngest is adopted and she's 10. And I've gotten to see, we talk about our first litter and our second litter of kids and that all the stuff you talked about. We overparented our first ones. I controlled so much and micromanaged and hovered and did all those kind of things more with them. And then the second ones, I'm not even going to say I got wisdom enough not to. I just kind of got tired. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch. If it's an animated show, I'm not going to watch. I'm just out, and I'm not going to, do some of those. And I kind of out of that did a better job of letting them be. And you know what? And just like you said, oh my gosh, they're not going to die. And if they go to school and mismatch clothes, so what? And
Yeah, right.
and so I got to that. And I do have grandkids now.
You do?
So
Oh, good.
they call me grandpa. I still feel a little young for that. But what you're talking about, yeah, removing myself from even the outcome so much of has changed the paradigm. Which back to again your perspective of. You talked about in the book of what the commitment. You even talked about it from yourself that you went from. I'm going to paraphrase, Lynne.
Okay.
The average person who's thinking about themselves, a little wrapped up in themselves, worried about themselves, and then you found this commitment. And a lot of that, I don't want to minimize that, but a lot of it just kind of fell away. You now had a commitment. It made me think of the movie scene where everybody's kind of living and thinking about themselves and looking in the mirror. And my wife would say navel gazing. And then all of a sudden the thing happens. In the movie, it's a tragedy or it's some big thing. And it all goes by the wayside. Who cares? And you go and you commit to that thing. We love to watch that. I mean, that is what makes billions of dollars in Hollywood is we love that story where you rise up to deal with something that's bigger than you, that's larger than life, that's above the law. That's all those things that we love to do. We love that, but we don't do it in our lives, and we get caught up in the social media and the next thing that's happening. And again, our own navel gazing, as I'll say. I was trying to find it, Lynne. You actually had a word or a phrase that was about looking at yourself, kind of getting caught up in your own junk. Do you remember the phrase?
Well, it's your life starring you.
Okay.
You can be I left a life that was all about my life starring me
Yeah.
to a committed life where all that noise that came with my life starring me. Do I look good enough? Am I young enough? Am I pretty enough? Did I wear the right outfit? Did I say the right thing? Did I like that person? Did that person like me? All of that is human. So it doesn't go away completely, but it moves to the background. And in the foreground was who do I need to be to end world hunger? And that's a very different question than do they like me? Am I wearing the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Am I smart enough? Am I cool enough? All of that is still that's noise. Now I know it's noise. I thought it was real, but it's moved to the background. It's like background noise in a restaurant or something, or background noise in a construction on the street next to your house. It's not what you're focused on. It doesn't go away, but it's not where your attention is. And what your attention is given to is what you're committed to. And it's such a relief. Actually, it's such a relief to not have that noise in your head and not to believe that stuff and to know that it's just noise. Now, I buy into it sometimes, when I'm about to give a big speech and I'm a little nervous and I'm afraid I'm going to screw up, or, I'm just releasing this new book and I can't wait to see what people will say about it. Well, did I do it right? Did I do a good job? Is it going to be as successful as my first book? So I have all those thoughts. They didn't go away, but they don't manage me anymore. I manage them. They used to manage me. Now I manage them. I know that that's kind of bullshit. I know that it's doubts and negativity and all the stuff that that you get just by being human. It's not my fault that I have those thoughts. It's part of being a human being. I just don't give them power. And I gave them a lot of power. I gave them all the power. And there's moments where I give them power again. And then I realize, oops, no, that's like stupid. Just do it. Just go forward. So that's kind of what I don't know if that's the phrase
I want to dig in. No, I want to dig in right there because you say, and I found the segment that I was looking for. You said a committed life. And I think you were talking about yourself that in your own journey of beginning this committed life, and you said it's governed not this new life governed not by my desires, by my wants, or even by my needs, but rather by what I'm committed to. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But I do want to dig in right there because I'll ask you this. I struggle with coming from a religious background, a Christian background, and that concept of dying to self. And I've always struggled with that. And I'll say that sitting here today, I struggle with thinking, is that possible? Or do we even understand what that means? Because I don't feel like I'm never going to die to myself. I'm me. I have my own appetites. I have things that I don't know that I can ever be totally selfless, but I can go serve. But generally I'm going to find that I'm serving in ways that still do serve me to some degree. I got a two-part question. I'm going to stop there. Talk about that, because we have that perspective. I mean, I remember it as a kid of thinking, okay, I pray and say, hey, God, use me for wherever I'm supposed to do, whatever my calling is. And he says, okay, you're going to go serve, third world children in this country far away. And I'm going, I don't really want to do that. And I heard messages in my later life of saying, I don't know that God would have you go do something that you absolutely hate.
Mm-hmm.
Start there. Play with that.
Well, first of all, dying to self, I don't know that term so well as you do, but I think I have to be, respectful here, but religion can be part of the problem here, because we get into these reified beliefs and they don't necessarily apply to everything. And some of them have become so rigid that they constrict us rather than free us. And, what really God wants from you and me is for us to be free to express the best expression of ourselves. And, there's a wonderful story I'll tell you about a friend of mine named David, and he was struggling with his marriage, and he had two little girls at the time. And his marriage was kind of on the rocks. They were living together still. There wasn't a divorce or anything, but he was just struggling. He didn't feel like he was a good husband. He didn't feel like he was a good provider. He didn't feel like he was being a good father. And there was a lot of strife and inner conflict in his family. And he went to the Amazon where I work, the Amazon rainforest, and kind of turned himself over to one of the great shamans there. And these shamans, the ancient shamans, in the rainforest, they're ancient, they're old, but they're also working with ancient truths. And he got in a shamanic ceremony, and his countenance, or his way of being, was, he said to the spirit world, let's call it that, and it could be God in your case, but in this case it was the spirit world. What's wrong with me? I'm such a jerk. I can't feed my family. I can't get along with my wife. I'm a terrible father. I'm such a jerk. I'm stupid. I'm this, I'm that. I'm not worthy. I'm like that. And he's like, ah. And the voice that responded to him said something like, how dare you question and doubt my creation?
Yes.
How dare you insult the life you've been given, the gift of the life you've been given? How dare you? How arrogant of you to question it. And that last phrase, how arrogant of you, I realized that kind of making yourself, oh, I'm not worthy, and oh, I didn't do it right, and there's something wrong with me, seems modest. But actually, modesty is the flip side of arrogant. It's trying to not be arrogant, but it has nothing to do with true humility. Because when you discover who you really are, it's humbling. It's humbling in the most beautiful way. You're blessed to discover who you really are, who you really are. So I'm suggesting that, and I don't mean to make religion part of the problem, but I know in some cases belief systems, ideology,
sure.
trap us into ways of thinking and being that kind of miss the point of why that religious tenet was invented in the first place. And we need to really trust that our bodies and our experience of ourselves and our what touches our heart, that's real. You when you're touched and moved and inspired and start to tear up, that's real. That's not manipulation. That's not someone pulling wool over your eyes. That's real. So that's where I think we can sort of navigate and calibrate ourselves. Life is confusing, yes. Life is upsetting, yes. Life is unfair, yes. And there's signs, and there's a way, and there's a feeling, and there's that moment where you know your integrity is intact and you are doing what's yours to do. And it's not like all day, every day for me, but I know that it's there and I trust it. and I trust it. So
Well, let me jump from that, from a spiritual and a calling, again, to a pragmatic aspect of looking at, okay, there's this thing that breaks your heart, that you're burdened about, that you're passionate about, that you look and say, gosh, I want to be a part of that for you, ending world hunger. Would be similar, let's on a pragmatic vocational side of you saying, I really like media, and I like visual media. Okay, I love that. I'm going to be a part of that. Well, you have approximately 1 million different opportunities to be a part of that. And we tend to, I see this again in my own life and in walking with so many people, we tend to be so narrow-minded to think, gosh, I really like music. Well, I got to, write songs and play on stage. No, you can be there's an infinite amount of ways you can be involved in music without doing that. Same thing here. So if we look at, in your case, ending world hunger, there's as many opportunities there to, back to what you said, be the best expression of ourselves, to do what's yours to do. And now I'm talking about skills, talents, giftings, abilities. That's the best way that I can go serve, in your case, world hunger, is to look at where am I best equipped and go do it in that way. And again, not to take this calling and think it's going to rip me out and put me into something that I have no capacity to do. Is that fair?
Yes, that's right. But at the same time, well, I'm going to say that Howard Thurman quote you probably noticed in the book. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive.
Yes.
Go and do that, because what the world needs is people who've come alive.
Yes.
And that's there are needs in the world, yes. And then if you go towards the need alone without saying this is mine to do, you end up in sacrifice. And sacrifice is not healthy, and it doesn't have integrity. It sounds beautiful, but it doesn't have integrity, really. You don't want to sacrifice yourself. You want to contribute yourself. You want to be of service, and you want to include yourself in the service, that it's fulfilling for you, that it is your dharma, that it is what you're calling. So it takes some real paying attention, and there's so much shoulding out there. You should do this, you shouldn't do that, you should do this, shouldn't do that it's hard to navigate the world. But we all know deep in our heart of hearts who we are and what's ours to do when we really think about it, when we really drop into our heart. And there's no formula. I can't say part 1, do this, part 2, do that. But to trust that if you're born, my belief is if you're born now at this time in history, you have a role to play. It's not a big role. It's not a small role. It's your role, whatever that is. And if you play it, your life will have so much meaning, and you'll be so fulfilled, and you'll make the difference you're here to make. And I know that's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
But there's so much noise. It's hard to find that, because it takes stillness and listening, intentionality, courage, and it takes some quiet. And quiet is not that available in today's world.
No, it's not. And, you just said something to me is profound too. When we look at service, serving something, committing to something, doing something meaningful, that you said it's not about sacrificing yourself. And I'm going to kind of pull in that. And it's a religious term of dying to self that I think we misinterpret how that is. Because to sacrifice ourselves and just to pour ourselves out to where there's nothing left. I see no context of that, whether it's in the Bible or in another religious context, or just in the reality of life of seeing the people who have served most. And I know you literally knew Mother Teresa, which that's just profound to me in and of itself. That was she just about sacrificing herself and wearing herself down to where she couldn't drag herself out of her room, as opposed to, you said, contribute. And my understanding is that, it was specifically, if we can use Mother Teresa, that she had some really, I don't want to say strict, that sounds bad, but she had boundaries. And I heard, maybe Lynn, and if not, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but she had some things of, if she's going to work for a week, one of those days, 7 days, she took off. If she was going to work for a month, she was going to take a week off. If she was going to she had these sabbaticals that she would take to make sure that she was caring for herself. And yet we have this depiction of our little Mother Teresa going around and just working herself to the nub. And I don't think that that was the case. So again, that you holding that, it's not sacrifice, contribution. That's significant, I think, when we look at service. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a phrase, I think it's in the Bible, but it's somewhere. Drink as you pour.
Mm.
And I love that. Drink as you pour. There's something about that so profound for me. It's a simple little phrase, but drink as you pour. Include yourself in your service.
Yeah.
You know, she had a lot of respect for herself, as she called herself God's pencil. She had to sharpen herself. She had to, take care of God's pencil. So she had a lot of respect for the fact that she was created by God and that she needed to tend to this creation as well as use it to contribute. So she felt herself to be instrument of the Lord. And it's like, you sharpen your knives, you sharpen your sword, you get your tires changed, you get a lube job in your car.
Right.
You clean your house, you fix the plumbing, you reboot your computer. That we need to do that with ourselves. It's not like you're going to help everybody out here and you're the great bountiful person who can do that forever without ever looking at your own life. No, that's arrogance. That's a form of arrogance. That's why I like to say that, because that's so insulting. Because you think you're sacrificing, I'm giving everything I have. I'm giving more than I have. I'm giving beyond what I have. There's an arrogance in that. There's a real arrogance in that. And once someone pointed that out to me, I cut it out right away. I realized I don't want to be arrogant. I want to be useful. And I can't be useful if I give everything and I don't take care of myself. At the same time, I'll tell you another story that that I think it sounds like a paradox, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I once was interviewed by a magazine, or an editor of a magazine called me, and the editor of a magazine called Balance, a women's magazine. The name of it was Balance. And they wanted to put me on the cover, and they wanted to do an interview with me as the lead article. And I said, when the editor called me, I said, you have the wrong person. I'm not the right person for this magazine or for this message. I don't even seek balance. I'm not balanced. I've never been balanced. I don't know about balance. I don't even want it, actually. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It's good for other people, but not for me. And she said, well, what do you seek? Tell me. And I said, well, integrity. That's what I want. That's what I commit to. Integrity, my own integrity. And my integrity includes taking care of myself. My integrity also includes, if I have something that I said would be ready by Tuesday at 9 a.m., and I need to stay up all night to make sure that I keep my word, I will do that. And if it's due, on Friday, and I have to stay up on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to do it, I will do that to keep my integrity intact. So I seek integrity, and it's not the opposite of balance, but it's just a different. It feels different to me, and then I might need to collapse and take 3 days off, but so what? I kept my word. Yeah. Which is one of the ways of having integrity. So the lady, she said, "Oh my God, okay, we are putting you on the cover. We want to talk about that."
Yeah.
But it's just another distinction in the way we see life. I feel very clear that when I say one of my highest commitments is to make the world work, to create a world that works for everyone with no one and nothing left out. To create a world that works for everyone with no one and nothing left out, that includes me.
Yeah.
That includes me. It includes me, it includes my family. So, So
your statement, Lynne, on arrogance. So I'll raise my hand and say, and I want to say I have done that it's in the past, though I'm sure it always exists and it ebbs and flows. And I found myself doing that as a parent, going around, especially with a family my size, and thinking that, one, that I was their savior, and two, that I was doing God a favor. I think to some degree, it's really what came to mind. It was a kind of a personal epiphany of like, I am way, way overweighing my own importance here. Like, honestly, if I die, I've got life insurance. They'll get some cash, and a decade later, they're all going to be here. they'll have recovered, and somebody will have paid the bills, and they'll have eaten and whatnot. And it wasn't to minimize. I mean, I guess maybe that's the balance. It wasn't to minimize going back to what you said, my contribution.
Yes.
But to balance. Now I don't want to use the word balance. We just talked about that. But to hold that with, it's not on me. I am not God. That has been a part of my own. It's been a struggle, even in my big commitments, Lynn, is maybe arrogance of looking at my contribution as being so great that it rested on me. And now realizing because I sabotaged things, because I burnt out, because it's not sustainable and it's not healthy. And so I did some things that were good, and I hurt them by not taking care of myself and by being arrogant within that. And it really is, you talked about freedom earlier. Kind of like with the parenting we're talking about, the freedom to go, it's not all on me. Thank goodness I'm not God. And so my contribution matters. My integrity matters. I'm going to show up. I'm not going to minimize that, but it's not all on me. It feels like that's got to be a big part of, would you say, a healthy commitment?
Yeah, right. And we all balance, this word balance is, we all do balance this against that. We all do. I don't want to make balance wrong. I want to just go back and, kind of clear that up. But I do think one of the things that was so useful about that conversation is I realized that what we really all want is our integrity, our wholeness. We want to be a whole, and we want to make the difference that is ours to make, but we don't want to become codependent. We don't want to rescue. We don't want to become the victim of our own commitments. We want to be the agency. We want to keep our own agency intact. And I get burned out. I do this collapse thing. I get overwhelmed, etc. And I know when I do, it's not necessarily how many hours I worked or that I didn't take the weekend off, as much as it is I'm disconnected with source. And when you're disconnected from source, you can burn out. But when you stay connected with source, you become like a superhuman. I mean, I love talking about the people who worked at NASA when Kennedy said we're going to put a man on the moon in 10 years. When you talk to those people, the people who are still around, they had such a blast. They had so much fun. And they had Coke and pizza every day. They didn't go home at night. They were like, didn't take care of themselves, etc. But they were connected to what I'll call source in their case, this incredible vision for the world. It was so exciting that nothing since then has matched it. And yesterday I was interviewed by Dr. Mark Hyman, and he was sharing about, he worked in Haiti, and he said Haiti's just a mess right now, and it has been forever, but it's really a mess now. But I want to just go back to when he was working there. He went to help out in a very difficult situation after the earthquake, and he said he feels a little bit bad about this, but he was high as a kite while he was doing that, because he was really, really connecting with people, really making a difference. And he felt the energy, the vitality, the through line of the divine coming through him as he did the next surgery, or as he did the next consultation. And he said, it was like he didn't need to sleep. He didn't need to eat. He was running on, and some people would say fumes, but he said, no, I was running, my connection to source was intact. And then there was a point at which it was time to take care of myself as well. Yeah. So I think it's really, it's a dance. It's not a formula. It's a dance. And it's a constant dance for me. I'm involved in, more things than anybody should be involved in 10 lifetimes. And I love it. And sometimes I crash, but I know that what I'm really doing when I'm on point, when I'm in the zone, is contributing, being a collaborator. It's not all up to me, but I've been called, and I'm an instrument of something greater than myself.
Going right from there, Lynn, and bringing in that, and again, I don't even want to use the word arrogance because it's such a negative word, but just to find that thing that you care about so deeply, and you're talking about, you're involved in, multiple things, but you care about so deeply, there is the danger of letting that become so big that you are burdened by it. And to go back to a religious context, we would often play with that concept of, are you taking your faith or your belief, or in this sense, your commitment, and carrying it like a burden? or carrying it like a song in your heart. And
Nice.
okay, well, I hear you saying that to you, oh, you're so excited about this commitment, the commitments that you made. You want it for others so that they are, it's music within them. It's a light coming out of them. And yet I'm sure that you've got to see in the demographics that you're in of people who are serving these big efforts, who are committed, that you can see both sides of it. Somebody who's just so, it creates life within them and others who it drags them down. And I want to say that with sensitivity because I see people even in the mental health space who are dealing with such tragedy that it's very hard for it not to take a toll on them and drag them down.
Yeah, well, that's so true. And especially that. I mean, I really have my heart goes out to those people. I have so much gratitude and compassion for them, and God bless them for what they're doing and how much it's needed right now. And how important it is for them to stay mentally healthy themselves. My God, yeah, really.
Well,
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
well, but I would say hold that for me then of that because as you talk about your context, your perspective, Lynne, is of this commitment of bringing you life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then would you say, man, if your commitment is not bringing, if it is dragging you down, that's a red flag. And what are they missing? Have they gone into it with a wrong perspective, or have they gone to it like we talked about earlier, and they've gotten involved in a role that's unfitting? Where do you see that? Where do you see that usually leading?
Yeah, sometimes people are caught in a system or a structure that has become, as you put it, a burden to them, and rather than something that enables and inspires the action. And then you need to restructure or leave that structure and find a new one. And sometimes it's just exhaustion, which is, we all do that. So that's okay. And exhaustion can be resolved by rest. But sometimes it is really, this is not a fit anymore. I'm on the emergency wing hospital nursing staff, and I'm in my 50s, not in my 40s and 30s and 20s. And there's all these younger nurses that would be able to do those 24-hour shifts, and I should be supervising them. Or maybe it's I'm in this profession and I can feel that I've given my all and I've made a huge difference. I was just talking to a woman this morning who was for 23 years has been in the tech world, and she's really, really good, and she's done very, very well, but she's just now, it's just not it for her anymore. And I told her, you need to do honorable closure. You need to do what we call honorable closure, which is in my book, where you actually become complete with that rather than leave it, rather than get out, but do honorable closure. Look at the 23 years and all you've produced, and the people you've worked with, and the people you've managed, the people you've trained, and the people who've trained you, and the incredible, and give some real deep gratitude that, and forgive yourself for anything you regret, and then really tell the story of it in a way that you feel totally affirmed before you leave, and be in absolute communion and gratitude with all the people that you need to communicate to before you step out of the door. And then you'll feel so great. And then the future will open up for you. Yeah. But if you don't do it that way, you'll suddenly be adrift rather than you'll be complete. So we all have our, things we want to escape from. And that's a sign if you want to escape from it. I sometimes ask, when you're looking at a list of things to do, does it give you energy, or does it drain your energy? Yeah. And take the ones that give you energy first, and then you'll have the energy to do the ones that are harder. But don't take the ones that drain you first, because then you won't have energy for anything else. I tell people to manage their energy rather than their time, which is really, that's not what people are doing most of the time. They're just doing the schedule. But if we really pay attention to our energy, we always know if something's giving us energy or if it's taking it away. And that's a sign. It's a powerful, powerful message. If we pay attention to that, life is much more joyful and flows much more readily.
Well, you don't know how timely it is, Lynne, as of when this show posts. So folks, everybody listening, a few guests ago, you'll have heard on my show, Patrick Lencioni, one of the biggest leaders in business. And he has a new assessment out called Working Genius. You can find it at workinggenius.com. and it is going through, where is your working genius? So just to what you're talking about. So Lynne, if I'm going to go be part of a big effort, I'm going to make a commitment to something. I know, thanks to Patrick, and I've seen some other assessments for myself. I know where I should function, where I'm going to be best. I'm going to look at a problem or look at something and go, gosh, what's the opportunity here? And then what's an invention that would help that? That's where I function great. And we come up with that and everybody looks at it and goes, gosh, that's a great idea. Let's go make it happen. Okay, I'm kind of done now. I'm good right there.
That's your part.
Yeah, that's
your
my
swim
part.
lane.
I'm the ideation. If you want me to get in and put the cross the T's and dot the I's and come up with everything, that's not my forte. And if you get me in there, I'm going to burn out, which is why I have done what I'm going to do. So to know where is it that I'm going to function best is significant. I wanted to ask you, Lynne, in this, kind of along those lines, when you look at big efforts, when you look at something that you care about in serving this planet and you want to be involved in that, we have that tendency to think of, maybe you can help me define it better, but I'm going to delineate by saying kind of being on the front lines or being in a support role. Meaning, if I'm going to go in world hunger, do I need to, as I talked about before, I need to fly over and be with these kids on the dirt-strewn street with the sewage running next to it and helping give them rice. But for every person doing that, how many are back here in the States or where they are running a Fortune 500 company that's sending over millions of dollars? Help us look at that. Because again, it feels like we seem to be narrow-minded, that there's a need and a place for... I kind of wanted to hit that, the support and the front lines. Is that a fair delineation?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's the front lines of the Fortune 500 company too. So it's kind of a it's kind of a false category, because there's a front line for everything. But at the same time, I understand what you're asking, and it makes sense to me. I think. Yeah, it's this quote about what makes your heart sing, what makes you feel come alive is so important to pay attention to. And whether it's the role or the topic or the area of the world or the task, we need to avoid the things that leach energy from us and cultivate the lilies that give us energy. Avoid leeches, cultivate lilies is kind of a way of looking at life, a simple frame. And to know that there is a place for all of us. It's like there's nobody who's left out. There's no FOMO. There's a place. And we don't need to, quote, fit in. That fitting in is the opposite of being true to yourself and expressing yourself. Fitting in is as if there's no place for you. You have to jam yourself in there.
Okay.
There's a place for you. There's a swim lane that's yours. And then sometimes that changes. Sometimes you're really, really good at the on the ground stuff. And then there's a certain point at which I know this world well. I know it so well that I can be the person who supervises the ones that are on the ground. And that's really where my joy is, in training people and keeping them healthy while they're on the ground. And then you realize that supervisory role is not quite right for you anymore, that now you're really the strategist who will design how we're going to address these problems. So we do grow out of roles. We do grow out of roles into a role that's more fitting for us as we evolve. Yeah. And we're a work in progress. Everybody is. And life is school. There's everything's a teaching. So it's kind of like, just pay attention, close attention, and know that your energy never lies. Energy never lies. So I love talking to you, for example. I just want to say you're such a great conversationalist, and you're so enthusiastic and you're so alive. I love talking to you, and I'm doing lots of interviews right now for my book, and there's some people that I don't love talking to. And I think maybe I shouldn't do those interviews. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, we can always tell. You can tell by it's in our bodies. Everything is in our bodies. Yeah. You can feel it. You can feel it in your heart. You can feel it when you get teary-eyed, that you're moved to tears, that something's right on right there. That's really tugging at your heart.
Yeah.
Or you can feel when you're joyful and laughter and your body feels light and wonderful. You can feel it when you can't wait to talk to a person and you wish that interview will come sooner because you can't wait to get on the phone with that person. So I feel like we all know what I'm saying about all this. It's not rocket science. I'm just reminding us that we know who we are. We know what's ours to do. We know our life is given to us, and our life is given to us so that we can give it. That's what I think is true.
Well, Lynne, just thank you for being on here. Again, I'm so eager to talk to my kids about this, just as much as I'm eager to put this out to tens of thousands of people here on the podcast, of that concept of looking at what you care about, look where you want to make a difference and committing to it, and it forming you into the person you want to be, getting you outside of yourself, which we'll actually talk a little bit more about here in part two. As we kind of walk through your values, I want to pull some things out that you said, but it feels like a freedom. Back to what you said, it feels like a freedom as opposed to being back here and hoping for XYZ to happen to prepare me for something that, in essence, you're saying you're never going to be prepared for that. Kind of like back to parenting. You're going to learn it as you do that. I hope it's as inspiring to everybody else as it is to me. And I'll be talking about it at the dinner table with my kids. So Lynne, thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your service. And thank you for being willing to come here and talk with me today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I loved talking to you. And thank you for the kind of human you are. And the committed life you're leading, and the father you are, the husband you are, the brother you are, the son you are, and the human you are. I'm really grateful to be in your company and to be on your show. And thank you so much.
Lynne, thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us in the discussion. That again is Lynne Twist. And the book that I referenced in this discussion, Living a Committed Life, Finding Freedom and Fulfillment in a Purpose Larger Than Yourself. You can find the book anywhere. And you can find Lynne pretty much anywhere you type in Soul of Money. So till next time, here's to the evolving you and me.
Yeah.